Awesome. There'll be a couple of moments of pauses in that little moment where I start going, but bear with me. Yeah, just huge thanks to SVA for the invitation. It was quite an honor when Katrin and Amy presented the idea about being a speaker for you guys. So just thanks, and thank you to everyone that come here today. Alrighty, yeah, RIT. I'm British born. We moved to the US when I was 3. We went California to Minnesota to North Carolina to Rochester to Philly to Brooklyn. And I've been in Brooklyn since '96. And I do feel that I am at home here. It is the longest I've lived anywhere in my life. The last apartment I was in was the last home I had for the longest time. And yeah, I'm enjoying New York. So yeah, college was good. I never understood. I was pretty green vague when I got to New York State in general. When I heard that I was going to school in New York, I was like, great, that's huge, it's big. I didn't realize that Rochester was 7 hours away from New York. I just heard New York and that was all I saw. Similar to when I got out of school, I heard so many horror stories about finding an apartment in New York. So I took the first apartment that I found. What I realized people meant is finding a good apartment. And at that point, I got determined to make sure I found a place that I was actually happy to live in. And then I found a brownstone that I was the second floor tenant, and I stayed there for a decade. And yeah, I now live in Clinton Hill with my wife and my 4 and 11, 12, she's 5 next month, daughter who's in kindergarten, who's unfortunately not here tonight, but she'd be cheering. So yeah, 92 to 96 was college. It was exploratory. I had always wanted to be a photographer. I was shooting in college. I had won one tiny little award early on that got me into a group show in a shopping mall in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And that was like the first little piece of there might actually be a possibility for this. And I befriended a photographer at the university, and there was a fraternity at UNC Chapel Hill that was very similar to Animal House. That was on probation, and we just hung out there and talked about art and photography, and got into the dark room at the high school, got kicked out of it because I was arguing with the professor about what chemicals were allowed to be used to develop film. But at the same time, I was in the printing program. The high school had an offset printing program back in the day where you were burning plates. And I actually learned on Photoshop 1.0 and started a tiny bit of digital. I had no idea that it was going to be like foundational to my career in the future. But yeah, so we started off printing, and they had a ton of paper there, and they had scrap, and so I was able to print like 5,000 envelopes with like a stretched out eyeball, which I still have a couple of today, and like notepads. Like I was using Man Ray like images to print all these notepads and bound them myself, and it's lasted 20 years, and I have a few pages left, but if you see any, I'll purchase them. So, all right, I'm gonna skip forward out of college. I assisted in New York for about 4 years. Worked for a bunch of different photographers, Mark Seliger, Bob Sasha, who is, I believe, one of the lecturers coming. Did a couple of jobs with him, went on a 10-day-long National Geographic assignment with him, which was phenomenal. Seliger, Timothy Greenfield Sanders, I was his first assistant for about a year, went to the White House with him, LA, bunch of different celebrity shoots with him. And all along, I'm learning and watching, sometimes keeping my mouth shut, sometimes not. That was one of the skills that I learned later on in both my assistant career and my photography career, was one of those abilities about when to be able to give your opinion and when not to. But yeah, it was a good 4 years of assisting. It was all film-based at that point still. There was no real digital. There was one digital job that we were shooting tabletop, and we were shooting through a spinning RGB filter to get the capture in color. So we'd take one exposure in red, one in green, and one in blue, and they would strip it together into the picture. And I remember driving with this guy out to the studio in New Jersey, and he had handed me this gigantic portfolio, and it was filled with pictures, and I thought it was so ugly. And I'm like riding shotgun with this photographer, and I just had to keep my lips quiet. So yeah, so I went through a bunch of different assisting careers, ups and downs in life. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made in my assistant career was with Bob Sasha when I parked our rental car in a no standing zone that got towed. So when we came back that morning, the Upper West Side, to go find the car, it was gone. So that was a little bit of a heart rip. And then the next mistake was later that day with Bob Sasha, where we had a 2-day job and the 2 bags of film had gotten labeled, separated, delivered to the lab separately, but same code. And the lab didn't double check and then processed half of the film based on the previous day's instructions. Just confessing my sins, just getting it out there.
Did it fire you?
Yes. That was my last job with Bob. So along this way, I'm shooting assignments. I had shot an editorial for Black Book the first year I got in. It didn't end up running. It wasn't a paid job, but it was enough. Like, there was little things going along the way. There was a bunch of free publications similar to today that were looking for photographers that had connections with advertisers, for stylists, for locations, for studios. And it's like, we can't pay you, but we can get you all of the materials together for you to shoot. Or there'd be like an editorial. Like, I had a couple of 12-page spreads in a fashion trade magazine where they had like $5,000 and like, this is all for production. And I just dumped it all into production, covered the lab, got an RV, got the talent together. And so along the way, we're testing, and I've got my portfolio together, and we're showing this to different magazines, different clients, and nothing's really, really catching. After about 4 years, one of the editors that I was shooting with at one of these free lifestyle magazines got hired at a computer trade magazine that had just gone through rebranding, and they had hired the designer that had repackaged ESPN. And so he brought me on, and I shot a cover shoot for them, and at the same time got hooked up with Image Bank, which was just in the process of getting bought by Getty. And so they handed me a shooting contract that was like $1,000 with a really reduced royalty. But I was like, $1,000 for taking pictures? So jumped on that, and with the editorial, it was enough for me to get out of assisting. And then that was pretty much where I started shooting full time, which was like August of 2000. There was a couple of like trickle-in assisting jobs, but that was pretty much the start of my like full-time photography career. So this picture is the trip that kind of started changing things in my life. I was dating a French girl for about a year. Her father worked for Vivendi. It was a water company based in France, and they called and they're like, "Do you guys want to come?" And they were in Niger, in North Africa, and they were like, "That's great." And so they were able to fly us out, and they, because of the fact that they were a government contractor, they had a bunch of relationships, and so they were able to, they hired a couple of drivers, and we went out on a safari for a week, 2 Toyota Land Cruisers and a chef. And the tread things that you use to like dig the truck out also worked as the grill. So we would like pull up, they would like cook dinner, tent, bottle of French wine, very civilized. And so these are actually some of the guests that we were with, and this was an abandoned city they knew about, that was landmarked, and like you're able to like walk around and find just like old tools. And this is one of the villages that we went to. One of the other locations that they got us into was a gold mine. And we walked in, and the general that was bringing us in was like, "Oh yeah, he's shooting for Time and she's shooting for CNN," which was the first time. And he's talking to these guys with M16s. So that, but kept my mouth quiet, and it was fine. And so we were able to get inside this gold mine and photograph. And so I'm shooting with a Hasselblad with a ring flash on film. And the guys were just hypnotized. And so anyways, during this, I ended up getting dumped by my girlfriend on Valentine's Day in the middle of the desert. So shifted all the emotional eggs towards the photography and stayed focused on that. So as this is going along, I've got the stock contract with Getty, and then my editor from Getty leaves Getty and becomes the director of photography for Image Bank. And Image Bank was great because they were willing to front all the production expenses on photo shoots. Like, they would give you a $10,000 check to go out and shoot, and you just had to pay it back on royalties, and they didn't charge anything. And since it was paid back, it went back to like a 50-50 split. So we were able to go out and produce photo shoots, and the royalties were rolling in. So we were just going out producing photo shoots on the fly, hiring local talent, friends, family, whatever, and just dumping it back between the different agencies and pulling in the royalties. This was in Ireland, just driving by, 4x5, pig houses. One of my vacation places that we've been going to since I was a kid were the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and it's down at the edge, and there's a point where the road ends, and there's still a highway, but it's sand. And so it's a legal spot to go four-wheeling, which is like one of my favorite time pet thingies. So this is one of the days we rented a Jeep and got models and everything and went out and shot on the beach. This is another one of those shoots, like Craigslist models. Just found a bunch of people out in Utah, did like 2 days of skiing with them, 2 days of hanging out in the out in the desert. So as these photographs are coming in and licensing is, coming up and down, some of the lifestyle's doing better, some of my lifestyle photography. I had signed with Getty's assignment division for lifestyle a little bit, had my industrial landscape book at the same time. My editor at Photonica, Karen De Silva, was, we were talking about the photographs, and she was kind of saying, that like one of the things that's really going to make your landscapes like marketable is like the industrial element, like the human element in these photographs is what's going to push the landscape photography into the next level of making it saleable. And I was like, oh, so like, oil fields and like parking lots, airports, that kind of thing. She's like, yeah, perfect. I was like, that's great. This is like what we've been driving around doing anyways. So if you're telling me to go do more of it, then I can start possibly focusing on this and shooting even more consistently. It's one of the last Photonica jobs, but. So I've now switched, I'm now dating a girl from Austria. I've now married and is my wife. But this is another one of these like drive-by photo shoots. They're installing a giant windmill in the farms. Logging and in the Alps somewhere. So these pictures were coming together as a body of work, and I've got an edit, and we're constantly refreshing the portfolio and the website and stuff and promoting it. And at one point I meet a book editor at one of the portfolio reviews. I think it was actually one of the ones that PDN had done. They were doing like a little pop-up outside of the photo expo. They had done like this 2-day seminar, and I got introduced to a book agent, and we met then, and I showed her the photography, and she's like, this is great, we should make a book. And I was like, that's great, I want to make a book. But I felt that like Stephen Mallon's cool photo book was not going to be enough to turn it into something profitable. And I'd already been like, been to the lectures and kind of hearing that like the photo book industry is not profitable. It's like you got to have $50,000 coming from somewhere to make the book. And I didn't feel that there was even like a theme enough to like sell it up, to upsell it to somebody to get them to pay for the $50,000 in publishing. So this is one of those photographs that's still going on. We went to the West Indies with friends. A friend who was an art buyer at an ad agency has got a family house out in the West Indies, which is where her parents are from. So my friends go to the beach, I go to the landfill. This is on the drive down to North Carolina. This was a construction site where it was a farm that they were in the process of putting in these $2 million mansions. Just like there was the Sim City, where like the McDonald's was getting built, the Home Depot was right here, the TGI Friday was in this square, and it was just the whole little like suburbia neighborhood was getting built outside of Richmond. So as this was coming along, I was still thinking about how to make this photo book proposal work, and we came up with the idea to make a project focused on the recycling industry. And so we came out with this proposal titled American Reclamation, and it was just locked into the 50 states. It's like, let's focus on the recycling industry. There's a lot of issue, a lot of attention right now with the green and anti-green and everything. So why don't we come up with a theme to photograph? So I hired a writer, we got a proposal together, and then I sent it out to a couple of different places. And it's like, would you, it's non-commercial use, can I get into your, facility to photograph? And a few people said yes, including this place in North Carolina. And this was a cement factory in California. We had gone out for one of the art fairs. I had already signed with a gallery in 2007. And she liked the work enough to exhibit as is, even though it was kind of random photographs, these different landscapes. She thought it was going to be powerful enough to show. And then she got into one of the art fairs in LA. And so we went out for that. And this was one of the locations that we shot at. One of the areas of the recycling that I'm also interested in is land reuse. There's a lot of different areas that are being repurposed for different things, and this is actually the Fresh Hills landfill, which is going to be a state park in like 2 decades. It's computer recycling. It's a paper mill in Minnesota. Recycling guys. It's a mountain of glass on Shelter Island. These are reconstructed blasting mats. They're old truck tires that have been stitched together with steel wire, and they put it over areas that they're dynamiting at mining and construction sites to protect the workers and the stuff around them. Another computer recycling. This was actually one of the first photographs, but this was in Bayonne, New Jersey, and I had contacted Metal Management, who owns the scrapyard there, with this project about going into photograph. And they said that sounds good. I was able to go and shoot for 2 days. And one of the times that I was there, they're like, oh, there's a vessel coming in on Christmas Eve. Do you want to be able to go and shoot? And I was like, that'd be fantastic. And so we got permission from the captain. I was able to get up on the ship and take this photograph. So all these projects are going on. I'm still promoting myself. We're shooting a little bit of editorial. We're shooting, we're licensing a lot of photographs. I had a meeting with an art buyer at McCann, and she said that, these photographs are great, but the only way that I'm going to be able to take this to Exxon and get them to commission a project is if you have photographs of the guy with the wrench. It's like they need images of the worker within this environment to make it profitable for them and be able to purpose it in some way. And I was really resistant to the idea because it was like, this is my fine art, this is landscape, I'm going to keep this away from my lifestyle because I had my pretty book with the snowball fights and the guys hiking and camping and everything. But I started realizing I really wanted to be over here. And there was people that really liked shooting lifestyle. Like that's what they did, that's what they branded, that's what they marketed. And I'm kind of like, I was getting into that little bit of a split where I had that kind of excuse where you show the book and they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we kind of get this. Like, but what do you like to shoot? And then I would pull out the landscape book and they're like, oh wow, this is gorgeous. We can't hire you, but it's beautiful. And I was a little fed up with that conversation. It was just, I needed to find some way to bridge that gap of like the stuff that I really felt connected and passionate about and turn that into actual assignment work. So after that conversation with her, I realized that I had to make the plunge. I had to start going to some of these locations and either shooting the people or bringing people to it to make it into an image that is going to work for the commercial market. Not worry about it for the fine art, but just be, if I want these landscapes to be sitting next to somebody or the landscapes within the people, I'm going to have to just, accept the fact that that's what the market is asking me to do. And so I hired some models off of Craigslist, and we found this location out in New Jersey. It's just some flat car trains that were sitting there. So we were able to go out there and photograph them. But while we were looking for this location, we came across this. So this barge was parked in Bayonne, New Jersey, loaded up with New York City subway cars. And I had heard about the MTA's artificial reef program through the New York Times when they had put the redbirds in. And I read the article that it was like, here's the last drop. And then when I had read it, it was like half a year into my recycling project. And I was like, oh, this would have been perfect. And then, so when I saw this barge, I, kind of walked up and it was Sunday and I was like, hey, their gate was open. I went to the front desk and I've got a project, and I'm insured and I've got this. And they're like, yeah, and they got me the contact information. And I unfortunately got a hold of Jason, the general manager, who's a fan of photography, and I told him about my recycling project, and he was like, that sounds great. Let me get you in touch with the MTA. The MTA was cool with it, so they got me down into their yard at 212th Street, and I was able to start photographing. And so I went out with the crew boats on a number of drops and photographed this project for about 3 years. During that time, we started building the relationship as well. And so they called one time. They're like, there's a ferry that had sunk in New Jersey again, in Weehawken. And they were shipwrecking it. The only way for them to get the ship out was that they actually had to chop the entire ship up and then scoop it out with these claws. So I went out and photographed it for a day. And I got to double check the dates because I actually don't remember. But at one point, Jason called and he was like, hey, I don't know if you're interested, but tomorrow we're going to be picking up this. So that was kind of just a nice little moment because Concorde, I'm a big airplane junkie as well, so the ability to go there and ride with the Concorde and bringing it back to the Intrepid was phenomenal. It had been parked in out in Brooklyn for a number of years while they were refurbishing the Intrepid. It was kind of like it was taking on a lot more water. They had to fix a lot of stuff, and they wanted to upgrade the display, so it was gone off the west side for about 4 years. Sorry, I skipped. I meant to talk about these. This was actually one of the first couple of photographs on the Artificial Reef program. This was shot at the Yard, 212th Street, high noon. They were just picking up the subway cars, and so the sun just naturally silhouetted the subway car, and then this picture ended up in Communication Arts and a couple other places. And this has also been one of the real popular photographs of the subway car going into the water. So yeah, so I was able to catch a ride with the Concorde. So we rode from Bayonne back to the Intrepid when they parked it. So life's still going along and everything. That's the back of the 533, which is the giant crane that they have. It's the biggest rotating crane on the eastern seaboard. And that's one of the guys just keeping an eye on the Concorde getting lowered down on the dock. So January 15th, 2009, Sully does a little emergency ditch landing in the Hudson River. And it's actually my wife's birthday, and so we're sitting in a bar watching this on the monitors, you know, and literally someone at the bar was like, I wonder how they're gonna get the plane out. And I was like, I know who's going to do this. And called Jason. He doesn't pick up the phone right away. He calls me back like 2 hours later, and he's like, we don't know yet. We're bidding on the job. We're gonna find out at like 10:13 tomorrow morning. I can't pick up my phone because I'm gonna be in a meeting with the Coast Guard and the FBI, but call Tom and he'll be able to, you know, answer. And so I prepped everything, like put my car in the city, got everything charged, and I called Tom. Tom Weeks is the family that owns these cranes. It's Weeks Marine. And hey, Tom, it's Steve. Hey, remember the photographer? We went on the Concorde. Oh, yeah, what's going on? I was like, well, I was wondering if you got that job. Which job? Well, the plane in the Hudson? Oh, yeah, we got it. Do you want to work? But unfortunately, that boom was on a brand new GPS, which was taking me to their corporate office, not to the Yard, because I put in the wrong address. So I ended up going like this for a little while, and then like they were calling like, hey Steve, you close? And then got there in time, got on a tugboat with them, went out with the original crane that went there, the smaller one, because the 533 was coming back from Boston. So I pulled in on a tugboat the next day from the water side. So when I got off of the crane with them, I was just in my hard hat and a life jacket and just was working for the crane company, which is how I bypassed all of the press and the security and was able to get access to this amazing crash. And it's the only jet aircraft to ever land in the water with a zero casualty, which is one of the other reasons that this crash was so phenomenal to be able to photograph. So yeah, so I just documented the whole process. The engineers, it's an Airbus 320, it's built in France, and so the engineers came in immediately to talk about the structural integrity and how, you know, where to put the straps, where like the center of gravity is on the aircraft and everything. And so the engineer actually stopped at JFK, went into the toy store. They fortunately had an Airbus 320 with US Airways logos on it and brought that as their demonstration, and that's what they're looking at. So coldest weekend in 30 years. Divers are amazing. They're incredible. They have they're wearing a wetsuit and they're pumping hot water through a garden hose from the surface off of just like a sidewalk, you know, heater that they use to clean the sidewalks. They're pumping it into their clothes to compensate for that. So the plane actually sank about 4 hours after this picture was taken. The ropes that the Coast Guard had used to tie the plane to the pier broke because of the strength of the current. So plane gets out of the water, they bring it back by barge, it's in Bayonne, and I'm there documenting the process, and I see that there's a ladder going up to one of the doors, and I asked the NTSB, is it okay, can I go inside to take some photographs? And I said, yeah, sure, it's fine. And that was just another one. So was able to get inside, was inside of the cockpit, and was able to photograph the cockpit and the seats and everything. And so those photographs ended up getting a lot of national and international press, including a series of TV interviews for me where I was on CBS and NBC and MSNBC. And so that exhibition was then shown at the Front Room Gallery in September 2009. I had shown it to them. I've been seeing them on and off for a couple of years. And when they saw this body of work, they offered me like their opening show in September of 2009, and I was really flattered. So I like this photograph just because it looks like this like hunting snapshot, just like we got a wing. This is the dive master from the other engine. One of the engines had separated when the plane hit the water. The engines are designed to break off, and so one of them did, and it spun the aircraft about 90 degrees in the water. And fortunately, it didn't pitch too much, but I love this photograph because I love the light on him. I love the like Vulcan symbol of the crane like directly behind him. A number of people that know him said that this is like the happiest they've ever seen him in a photo. So that's one of the divers. I love like the Play-Doh putty stuff that they've got in the their ventilations and everything. So they moved the aircraft through Jersey City. They were supposed to go over the 1 and 9. And if any of you guys know those bridges over some of the canals, there's these big old like iron bridges on the 1 and 9, the truck route. And well, they were slightly off on the measurement and they hit one of the bridges. And so I was there I was shooting from my car out of my sunroof, and we got up to that and there was this, and so they hit the bridge and actually ended up having to back down. But it made for a great photo essay for me because it went from a 45-minute journey from one place to the other to an 8-hour trip where they had to go all the way up north to the next bridge that was high enough that they could get the plane under. Was they knew they had that route as a backup. And so we had police escorts. There was a bunch of New Jersey state troopers on motorcycles just pulling along, moving the traffic out of the way so we were able to go wherever we want. And so they just drove through the city, whatever turns they had to make. So at one point, we're like going through suburbia and people are kind of coming out on their porch. I'm like, what's going on? I was like, oh, there's an airplane coming down the road. And they're like, whatever. And then they look down like, what the shit? So my gallery Front Room takes the photo essay down to Miami for the art fairs. It's in one of the satellite art fairs in 2009, and it gets a decent amount of attention. We sell a couple of 40 by 60s from the airplane, but a number of the other prints that we also sell are from the subway cars. And so my gallery afterwards says, if you want to go back, if you can go and, flush this project out a little bit more, we can probably give you another solo show. And so I go back and I start shooting a couple more of the subway cars. And this is towards the end of the project. And I tell the guys from Weeks, and I was like, I've got a lot of subway cars, going over nice and gently and nice, easy splashes and everything. Do you mind throwing something off a little bit more at an edge? And so this is what they gave me. So this ends up getting picked up by the New York Times. And so I call the MTA just to say, hey, you might get a reporter calling because they're going to be running a story on the project pretty soon. I was like, oh, that's great. And I don't know if you're interested, but they're sinking this in a couple of months. So he gets me in touch with the shipping company, the scrap company that is processing this destroyer. It was one of the largest ships, if not the largest ship, to be sunk on the eastern seaboard to date. And so because of the fact that they want business from the MTA and I was getting a referral from them and I'd already done this work, they said, yeah, sure, that sounds great, come on down. And so I get down there and the guys that own the ship that are like scrapping it and getting all the metal off and everything, it's like, we own the tugboats, we own this boat, we can get you out on the water. And I'm like, that's huge. Like I would love to be there. So it's like we ended up going out on the tugboats with them, and I'm on the ship while they're prepping it. This is actually before we left, but. So they've got 2 tugboats. As we're going along, every once in a while we were losing electrical power, and that wasn't really a concern of mine until I found out that the electrical power was connected to the steering. So one of the times that we lost power was when we started drifting, and then the line snapped. And that's the actual line falling into the water while the other tugboat is kind of going off and we're sitting there trying to like restart the engines. Yeah, so we get on the ship and everything. So we get out there, it's pitch black. They're running a tiny bit behind schedule. I wait until it's at least sunrise so I can see where I'm walking and get on the ship. And the workers are around there. They're putting on pumps and they're doing some last minute cleanups and stuff. And every once in a while they're like, you know the ship's sinking, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, you're here. I've just always liked this picture because it's like, how bad is the exit going to have to be that is going to matter? So that's one of the pumps. These are those caps right there are the fuel tanks. There's a helicopter bay, and so they'd already filled a bunch of these with cement and gravel, and then they're taking the caps off to just pump more water in. And they were just laying that hose down while I was there, so it was starting to like fill in. But he moved the hose. Like I wanted to like shoot there and just get that Titanic watery thing, but he pulled the hose and he changed the frame. So I had to move on. But these are some of the holes that they were cutting on the side of the ship. And they could do some before it left the Philadelphia Navy Yard, but a number of them had to be done on site because the ship had to be seaworthy. So the Coast Guard was very insistent that just, in case they hit a storm or something went wrong, it wasn't going to sink before it got out to where it was supposed to be, out for the coast of Maryland. So that's the scale of it. And that's actually the tugboat captain for the other tugboat that was in the previous picture, and he was actually pissed because they had left without him. So he was, and that's the aftermath of the ship.
What did you shoot with?
This is all shot on the Mark III DS. Yeah, that was part of the change in my photography a little bit because we had invested in the 5D Mark I for some of the earlier digital projects for lifestyle. Like that shoot in Utah was the first time that I was shooting digital. And what had happened is that the 5D Mark I had come out, and we were going off for this like week and a half long shoot, and I looked at the budget, and it was like half the cost of the film and the processing. We had a drum scanner in-house, but like the shooting the film and the processing was going to be equivalent to like half of the investment of buying a Canon digital body. So we decided to go ahead and make the plunge and get that. So for a while, I was traveling with the 5D Mark I, Hasselblad, Fuji 645, and my 4x5, and then that slowly got consolidated, and then the diaper bag kind of killed the 4x5 because we were going to Europe and I couldn't take all of it. So it was, the Mark III had come out and I was like, you know what, this is probably a good time. So I was able, so 4x5 stayed at home, bought the Mark III and took that to Europe because it was a large enough file size to print to the 40x60s that I prefer to be doing. So this was just one of the commissions that came up from some of this work. The work, I showed it to the creative director whose client was Maytag, and they were about to do a gut renovation of their facility. And actually, Manjari Sharma, who was one of your past speakers, was on this job. So yeah, she was one of her last assisting jobs. I was very happy that Greg Miller, she went to India, and it was like all the shower series was just starting to hit press. And I had a conversation with Greg, and it was just like, we have got to fire her. It's like, we got to kick her out the door. It's like, it's too much attention. There's too many things, too many good things happening for her. So, yeah. So I'm proud. So, as all of this work is going on, there's, we've now shifted into digital, but everyone's starting to like murmur about video. And I equate digital to video in a kind of similar way. It's like when I came out of school, everyone was shooting film. There was never any question about, contact sheets or lab fees and everything. And then people started kind of asking, can you shoot digital? And if you said no, they'd be like, oh, that's okay. And now I think if you wanted to shoot film on an assignment, you would have to get special permission. Like, it's like, what, 2 days to wait? Lab fees? No, there's like, we've got a $200 budget for digital processing and we need a hard drive and JPEGs online in 3 hours. So that I feel is happening a little bit with video. It's not exactly the same because they do understand that the still photography and video are very separate, but they want to have the video. They don't know what to do with it yet, but like, we need something for the iPad. We're not going to edit it. We need you to shoot it and deliver it for the same cost as like nothing. But they are asking about it, and so I was getting a little bit nervous about that because I don't have any experience on video. And that French girl that I was talking about a decade ago was ended up training as a video editor, and it took her a month to cut 30 seconds while I had printed an entire portfolio, had an exhibition, and she was like still on 30 seconds. And and this is already on Final Cut on a non-linear system, and I was just like, you're insane. Like, it's going to take way too long to be doing it. But it's what I was afraid of was having to learn that. And what I've realized now is you just got to outsource it. You just find the editor, you found your sound engineer, you find all of those components to be able to produce it, because video is much more of a collaborative process than photography. But I'll dive into that a little bit more. So these were a couple of stills when we were also shooting time-lapse on the first time-lapse video that I did, which was the chimney delivery. So again, this is all involved with Weeks, and so we've got a nice working relationship going, and so then they, again, call and like, hey, I don't know if you're interested, but in a couple of weeks, we're moving this. They were part of a 80-20 split on a construction bid, and they built a brand new bridge upstate New York, which they then brought down by barge. And I thought, this is a perfect project for time-lapse. This would be a great way for me to start building material for my reel. I wasn't even worried about money or not. I called in a shitload of favors. Every single friend, equipment. I ended up getting it sponsored by Scheinflug, and then just a bunch of loans. My interns were all there, went out. And actually, yes, some of the people from the MFA 2010 program came on this. So, and I'm then going to show you what that turned into. So that was my entry into motion, and it ended up paying off relatively well, just because that then got into the 4 different film festivals, got picked up by the Wall Street Journal again, and Wall Street Journal, after seeing this project, then commissioned another time-lapse film on a new roller coaster in Coney Island. After Wall Street Journal had posted it, then it ended up on Wired, and then I think the Sci-Fi Channel put it up on one of their blogs. And at that point, I don't know exactly when, who got it where, but I got a phone call from the Department of Transportation saying, "Hey, that's our bridge. We like your movie. Can we meet?" And it was a little bit, you know, was it kind of sure, like, "Hey, you took pictures of my girlfriend. Why didn't you ask me first?" But it all worked out. We ended up bidding on the contract, and I now have a city contract to producing these films for them. So it all worked out in the long run. So yeah, so one of the things we've been working on quite a bit lately are the films for the Department of Transportation. One of the short films that we did was on the sign shop in Queens that where they silk screen and print all of the parking signs. They do like 9,000 to 12,000 different signs. And so we shot a series of time-lapse and video. I've hired a director and a producer now that I'm working with, and have shifted the crew a little bit, but so I'm starting to shoot more actual live video. I brought the video people in so they could be sitting right here while I was shooting time-lapse, because I could set up my camera, it would shoot for 30 minutes, and then I was just like this, watching, and like, you know, the terminology and the codec and all of this stuff, just like picking it up as much as possible through talking to them, going to the workshops, following the, you know, all the blogs possible, and just pulling in the information. And it's been great, and it's been a nice kind of transition for me, because I've been able to like produce these videos, hire someone for the stuff that I don't know how to do, and learn it while I'm watching them. So we're now like co-shooting, like the next job on Thursday, it's like we're gonna be A team and B team, and it's the 2 of us shooting together. It's similar to what we did on this, but it was a little bit less, like this shoot was my first like live video capture. And I was so nervous about camera shake and all this stuff, because I was so used to like click, and now it's like it's click, and you gotta like step back, and the focus, like having someone else focus the camera for you was. DOT has been a great client. They have cool stuff. This is one of the stills from the marathon. The first film that they gave to us was to follow the Staten Island ferry, because the DOT operates the ferry, and they called us Friday at 3 p.m. and it's like, "Hey, the marathon is on Sunday. We run the ferry. We move 20,000+ people to the island. Can you shoot this?" And we said yes, and we had a team together by 5 a.m. on Sunday. We were shooting and did a film in the span of like 5 hours capturing this. And then we went back for 1 day of pickup of interviews. And yeah. And this was from the Sustainable Streets Index. They have like an annual report that they do every year that just talks about all the traffic calming and the things that they're doing to, you know, all those like barriers that have been coming into place, and the new left-hand turn, all that stuff that they put in. Their main thing is to keep traffic moving and keep people safe. And so it's constantly, you know, the bike lanes that they're putting in is a big direction from the DOT about making it a lot safer for cyclists. Because there's more and more people biking, they're putting in more bike lanes. And so this was one of the ones in Grand Army Plaza, and I just love flames, like blowtorches and sparks just keep me happy. And one of the other commissions that came up from some of this project was from Fortune. We were down in Miami, and I got a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, can you be in Brazil December 4th? December 10th. Yep. So they flew us out for a week-long assignment, and it was on Petrobras. So they flew us out via helicopter off to like one of these big deep water wells. This thing is from edge to edge. I think it's equivalent from like walking from like 6th Avenue to 11th Avenue. And this is like one of the 5th largest offshore drilling platforms, and they're putting in more, and it's going to be larger than Exxon by like 2015. This is at one of the refineries. But I love the texture. I love the interconnection of the piping and everything. Like, this is just like eye candy for me. It's just. So yeah, so this is one of the stills from the Wall Street Journal project. This was about a roller coaster named the Screaming Eagle, but it's built by an Italian company, which its name from them is volare, to fly. It's the first new roller coaster in Coney Island in 70 years, and so we got a commission from them to create this film, and so this was one of the remote cameras that we set up. It wasn't allowed to be there because if that broke, it would hit me and hurt. So we just had it, similar to some of the other times, we just had a camera sitting there shooting a frame every 5 seconds, and this is just still like one of my favorite pictures from that shoot. This is the last piece of the coaster being lifted. So this was the latest project that we worked on. I had a nice meeting at Smithsonian Magazine last year, and we got a phone call this summer asking if we could go up to Maine. And this was a brand new destroyer that they were building, actually to replace the entire class that I had photographed. That one that was sinking is being replaced by this. And there was like 22 or 24 of those ships, and a bunch of them have been scrapped, sunk as artificial reefs. There's a couple that are testing, but that entire class of ships has been decommissioned, and they went from like the 22 or 24, I think it was 22, destroyers to 3. And they're building some of the more traditional ships, but they're building 3 of this Zumwalt class, which are these like very stealthy destroyers. And I had to go through a security clearance, and I had to have all of my photographs checked before I left the base every time. But it was pretty easy. They were actually really great. There was one picture that I really wanted to shoot that I was like, yep, can't do it. But it's like it's like here. It's like the back there, right here is like the side view of the ship where you're able to see like 9 decks all lit, all colorful, and it was beautiful. And they said that just like the interior was one thing that they were worried about, because if some, science geek was able to get a hold of the photograph and figure out where like there was some little weak point in their construction, it might be a security risk. But still able to like do and stuff like this. And so we're like 80 feet up in a man lift with an operator, and I'm just sitting there like this, kind of dealing with the wind, shooting, and just waiting for as many sparks as possible. So yeah, so this was the most recent assignment that I worked on, and it was an absolute joy. So I'm really psyched to be working with Smithsonian. It's just went out about a week and a half ago, and a few people have been asking about what's next. The main thing that we've been kind of working on is not this. So we were able to go out and photograph the space shuttle when it came into JFK. It was commissioned by Bloomberg Magazine. The story didn't end up running, so the story itself is kind of sitting in limbo right now. It's on my hard drive. We've got it. We've got an entire film that we did, which is over like 60,000 stills from time lapse plus video. So it's in post right now. It's looking for a home. We're talking to production and TV and stuff. So we're going to see where it ends up. But I love this picture. We were out on the runway. I was doing the flybys at JFK, and we're like following it down the runway. And there's a press corps there. It's like 20 some cameras. I'm shooting with a 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and it's like, oh boy. And it's the full frame. So yeah, so we ended up following it out on its delivery. So we've got video and time lapse of the whole process. And Joel was on the side shooting some of it. So yeah, so that's the end of my, sorry, I wasn't paying attention at the time. I didn't realize we only had 10 minutes left. Do you guys have any questions?
I'd like to know what kind of lenses you used generally and specifically, because it seems like you did a lot of different ones.
I own.
We need to repeat the question.
Oh, the question was what lenses I've been shooting with. I own only the Canon glass. I've got the 28 millimeter, a 51.4, the 24 to 70, but it's broken. The 7200, and the 17 to 40. We shoot a lot with the 16 to 35 2.8 and a 35 millimeter 1.4, which I don't own, but I like a lot. It's on the shopping list. The question was, I'm saying we a lot, and like we're shooting, and it's like I usually have an assistant with me. I have one of my interns with me. I've got a client or, so assistant to intern to client, to my wife, my 4-year-old.
How many cameras did you shoot that movie that you showed us at one time, let's say, from various angles?
There were 3 time lapse on the bridge itself. I had a 4th camera on my shoulder. There were 2 cameras shooting from the dock when we left. There were 2 under the Brooklyn Bridge. There was 1 at under the 59th Street Bridge. And then they leapfrogged and ended up meeting back up at 125th Street. So I think there was like 15 locations and 7 cameras, depending on.
So you had 7 people working them? You
We
couldn't
had-
be in
yeah.
every place at once.
Right. No, they were leapfrogging. Like we had 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there was 7 people total on that day. So 2 of the former interns were at the dock while we left. I had another intern with me on the barge when we left from there, and then there were 2 cameras with 2 assistants down under the Brooklyn Bridge, and then I had another guy up at the 59th Street, and that was his only job, is just to get that one shot. And then they went ahead and met up with us at 125th Street. So that was the biggest day of like multiple locations at once.
A lot of extra batteries and a lot of extra cards?
Yes, and not enough. Storage, it's all shot raw, so it was over 30,000 frames. It's about half a terabyte of capture.
What kind of equipment were you using to shoot the time lapses?
It's shot with the 50D 5D Mark I. The question was what cameras I'm using. 50D 5D Mark I, 5D Mark II, a Mark III DS. So, and then one Nikon. Nope. There was one.
My question is about sound. You said that you went for that one movie. You went the following day for interviews. Is that what you said?
Not on that video. Actually, on the
Okay.
On the DOT ferry film.
So what are your feelings about audio and sound, and how
Scared?
do you use it?
I'm learning. I mean, I'm in the process of learning about it. I've got, I'm looking for sound techs right now. It's like that. The first one was just licensing with the song. I'm working on understanding how to do the interviews. Like I helped organize an event with ASMP, dealing with the shoot day of video. And so we had 4 people, and one of them was a sound engineer, just talking about the distance of the microphone to the people, about where to be putting the remote microphones on people, and what equipment, and how to be separating the sound. So it's like I'm on the, I feel like I'm here on the learning curve, So a lot of that is getting outsourced for me right now. I'm still very green to it.
What did you use? Lightroom tethered for time lapse, or did you use a gadget? A velometer.
Yeah. The question is how the time lapse was kind of functioned, what was driving it, and it was through the gadget. It was through the intervalometer. Canon makes 2 different cable releases, one that's $30 and one that's $120. The 121 has got a little chip in it, so you can tell the camera when to be shooting. We set all of the cameras shooting at 1 frame every 5 seconds, except for one piece that was going really slow, that we slowed it down to like 1 frame every 10 seconds. That's been working pretty well. Every once in a while, time went by a little bit faster than I would have liked, but that's been the default so far. Calumet also makes one that is really great because the cable is removable, so you can buy different cables to run it through different cameras. You can also fire it through the Pocket Wizards. The Multimax has an intervalometer that you can run, and the handy thing about that, although we haven't gotten it to work completely, is that you can fire multiple cameras simultaneously that way. So we tried it, it kind of worked on the bridge. There's a couple of gaps that we had to fill in.
Hi, I was just kind of curious about your asset management and software that you use for it, and that's it, really. How you keep track of it all? Yeah.
60,000 frames. Digital asset management, the files are typically like it's year, month, day on the folders. We've been separating out the camera log.
God, he said that.
Files are coming in, so we've been labeling the cameras and then ABC cards. the system is not foolproof at all. We were just searching for like 2 clips the other day because like we're re-rendering like one little piece on the space shuttle, and it's like we're not sure where it is. I know it's backed up. I know it's fine. I'm not sure on exactly which hard drive because we have 3 4-bay RAIDs, and one of them is being a problem right now. And so actually one of them had gone down in the middle of rendering. Like I came in one morning after like Lightroom had been rendering overnight, and 2 of the drives were both flashing red out of the 4. And so we backed up everything onto another 3 terabyte drive. And so somewhere in between all of that, the files are there and they're safe, but it's it's under construction as far as the overall because it's.
Lightroom is your primary software you use to.
Yeah, I've been running all of I've been shooting raw, processing out in Lightroom because of the fact that we can batch up, spot the files, color correct, sharpen. You get all this massive amount of post control that is similar to what you have in After Effects and some of the other high-end software for video. But in time-lapse, it's been really easy to batch process this way. And I think that CS6 has got a lot more of those controls integrated. But they seem to, again, like they seem to keep on leapfrogging. Like they'll build Photoshop based on what they put into Lightroom. So now that like CS6 is out, they came out with Lightroom 4. And it'll probably have some things that Photoshop can't do. And they just keep on doing it like this. So I haven't upgraded to 4 yet, but I will soon. And it'll probably like fix a number of the other problems. In fact, including the asset management, the fact that it'll handle video files better. Because we are starting to run into a little bit of an issue of where we need to be finding footage, and it's not organized very well. Like the clips and the labeling and the naming and everything is not good. So get back to me.
I just wanted to know what size, what type of media were you using to store the time lapse photos? Were you using like a card, or was it to an external hard drive from the camera?
We've been shooting on the CF and SD cards because we've been able to be at the cameras most of the time.
And what size?
The cards are like mostly 32 gig. We haven't upgraded to any of the 64s yet.
So you're shooting 60,000 frames with 32 gig SD cards?
Well, the
How-
interns are running and
That's what I'm
swapping out cards. They're all like.
Okay, that was that.
What kind of brainstorming can you do when it's something that's like on the fly? Like, how do you think about angles and stuff like that when it's just you have to go and do it?
If I don't have any time to actually like pre-scout,
Yeah.
I think it's pulling back from some of the previous, experiences, like what was in the bridge film that I really liked, what was missing. So the question was like the pre-visualization, like how much can I do if I don't have the ability to pre-produce and we don't know what's going to be happening? How do you, prepare and be able to shoot that? And I think part of that is just getting some sense of the location. Like we did not know what the shipyard was going to look like, but we were able to see a couple of photographs and an artist rendering of what the ship is going to look like when it's like shooting a missile. So we had like a sense that it was going to be this, and we had a sense that it was going to be this big, and we had a sense that we weren't going to be able to do certain things, and we weren't going to get into the ship. So, but I still brought my lights. Like I still had like lighting equipment just in case we got into a place that we needed it. We were prepared to light the shots, and so some of this is just it's run and gun. It's like a lot, and then with the video, a lot of it's in the post. It's just the editing. It's just like shoot first, ask questions later. It's definitely part of it. If you think that there's a small possibility that it's going to be needed, we're going to shoot it.
So Stephen, I was really fascinated. It seemed like your presentation, when you went from like the landscapes and the lifestyle to slowly the industrial and the landscapes and now this. I mean, in a way, it's a beautiful story how you sort of like slipped into what you're really interested in. And so I'd like to know, it's sort of like, in a way, it's sort of a dream. Like, what advice do you have for your interns, your assistants, or students in the room to like, find these projects that really keep you up at night?
Do I need to repeat the question?
No,
She's got a mic. Good, because I couldn't be able to say all of it. it's, think about the things that you're passionate about and connected to. Keep it realistic within the realm of what you have access to. If there's something that fascinates you, a storyline that you can follow that is particular to you, and then just do your research. It's like if you know that you're interested in going out and shooting twins, go take a look at Martin Scholler's recent project on it. Take a look at Mary Ellen Mark's, previous work on it. If you're interested in going to, Burning Man, if you're interested in going to Coney Island, just realize, that there's been a lot of photography, but there are the smallest, story, can explode into just beautiful work because of the photography. Like don't worry about it having to be the bridge or the space shuttle. It's like this project started out from photographing garbage and crushed cans. And I'm actually, I, to a certain degree, want to be able to get back to some of that metal. Like we're pitching a story right now to follow scrap metal across the ocean. So just come up with an idea, follow it through to its completion is really one of the critical things. A lot of people will either have the idea, have the technical abilities, but they won't put that together from beginning to end. So give yourself realistic goals and realistic deadlines. So you have a project that you can actually, I have to get this done in the next 3 months. And I apologize, I ran a little bit long on talking about my pictures. I wanted to get into this a little bit more. But one of the things that kind of falls away when you get out of school is the whole community and crick group aspect of it. Like you guys are going to class and you've got someone checking on you and it's like, did you do your homework? And when you get out of school, that's over. And to a certain degree, most people have got to find work, to some degree or another. And you start looking for an internship and assisting work and you start assisting. And then you start having, your social life kind of kicks in and then you're assisting 3 days a week. And then it's 5 days a week, and then you want to have a little bit of a life. Well, like, give up the life for a little while because it'll come back. Make sure that you're shooting. If you want to shoot commercially or fine art, make sure that you're shooting because no one is going to tell you to do it. And the only people that will are like peers. So a good thing to do is to build that community, to have a couple of people that you meet with like once a month, set goals, set deadlines for each other. It's like, what are you going to bring back? And like if it's the promo, the website, whatever, like everyone's got that to-do list. One way to keep it on task is to tell everybody what you're going to do because then they will ask you, did you get that done? So yeah, that's two of those things is just come up with realistic projects and then work on them. And if you have a 2-year-long project, that's fine, but don't create it as a bottleneck. You can't start it because it's in Indonesia and you're not going to be there for 2 years. Like find something to shoot in New Jersey or Brooklyn or wherever you're based. So there's something that you do have access to, so you can keep on thinking visually because it will apply. Even if it's something you want to be a fashion photographer, but you don't have access to models right now, just get some clothes. Go to the thrift store, buy 25-cent clothing. It doesn't really matter. Although I would suggest stay away from fashion. It is a brutal market. It's the money is like 6% of the advertising is shot by like less than 1% of the photographers in the world. But if you want to go that way, if you head towards fashion, find the fashion studios, find the fashion photographers, and get involved with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Find your